very last birthday together was going to happen in 2006, and that we needed to shove all the birthdays that we were supposed to have together all into one wonderful weekend. It's an anvil! We had the idea of inviting some of the longest, dearest artist-blacksmith friends of Russell through his 35 years of blacksmithing to come help us celebrate. I can't tell you what a pleasure it is to have all of you in one room, all dressed up nice. Russell had the idea of designing a sculpture, and that the party could be everyone who are, wonderful makers in their own right to come and make this sculpture.
This project is going to have every element of the human emotion you can imagine. Joy, sadness, but guess what? It is going to be celestial. Celestial. When you look up there days, weeks, months from now, some of them stars are going to be in this piece, and it's because of him.
Friends of Russell Jaqua's, and Russell is dying of Lou Gehrig's disease, and he's pretty far along. He can't speak anymore, but if those of you who don't know, the disease has no effect on your mind. It's merely attacking his muscular system, and in his case, it's predominantly affecting his ability to breathe. Russell was diagnosed with this about 1.5 years ago and given 1 year to live, and at the time, he had just installed this big hammer you see back there with the hopes and dreams, of fulfillment of a long-term dream of his, to be able to make large forging sculptures at the scale he wanted to work in. The opportunity to work with him is a great opportunity for anybody that loves hot iron work and forging, and to be a part of his last inspiration. This is particularly special because it's dedicated to Willene, his wife, and their birthdays are today. The 17th of February are the same day. Different years, but the same day. So it's just a special time, and there's a lot of goodness and people and so forth in the world. And this is a perfect example of it on a small scale, but these 30 people are here for the right reasons and the right things, and so those sorts of ideas and concepts are still as strong as they ever were in the country.
The evolution of this piece, which will be Russell's last monumental piece, has a really fun, quirky story to it. The design, as Russell has just written, the design is based on the fact that Jerry Culberson, ooh, hear that hammering in the back, had a whole bunch of material of a certain size that was very large. 6 feet by 5.5 inches by 1 3/4 inches makes each bar weigh about 200 pounds. He scored 30,000 pounds of this material for a bottle of whiskey. The piece itself is going to use 18 of these bars, of these 200-pound bars. The bars themselves get forged and treated so that their ends have they're plastically manipulated into a much more live and light play-like form, and then they get holes punched through the other end so that they can be riveted. The price of steel, after remaining stable for a generation of smiths, has taken off. So that was the first consideration. Then there is my design history. Things don't just pop out of nowhere. I have a style that I work within that is mine, or is part of a school called the Farabattute School. The Farabattute School is Italian. Farabattute in Italian means beaten iron. And it's known for being very heavily marked. So it's textured. You can see the hammer marks in it. You're not trying to smooth. It's got a real record in the work of the contact of the fire and the hammer and the blacksmith coming into conflict with one another. This reminds me of building the barn. I mean, at least when I see movies about the pioneers and they all get together and build somebody's barn, it looks like so much fun. And I always feel like, gosh, I wish that I had been around at a time like that where, you know, where it was just given that your neighbors were centrally important to your survival and you all pitched in. And this feels like that to me. It's a real village experience.
Russ's place in American blacksmithing is very solid. You know, he is really one of the key people that has been using the big hammer. Has been developing a lot of form, textural surfaces, and he's really played with that and taken it a long ways.
But Russell has managed to capture that plastic flow of the material with a great deal of control and finesse that a lot of other people haven't, and I think that set a standard for craftsmanship and design possibilities that have really broadened the whole possible field for everybody.
One of the unique things I think Russell has is the fact that, and this is typical of all fine artists, he has a style of his own that shows up so that when you see his work, you sense that this is Russell's work.
If I can see the material that it's made of, well, like an I-beam or angle iron or a square stock or a piece of pipe, I mean, what did they do to it, you know? I mean, to what extent did they transform this bulk material that you get from the steel company delivered you on a truck? You hasn't transcended, you know, that bulk cross-section into and acquired a new identity yet. You know, and I guess that's what I'm trying to do is give it this new identity. It's not a piece of steel that looks like a human form, it's a human form, you know. It's not a piece of steel that looks like a shovel, it's a shovel now, a steel shovel. I mean, there's like, it goes over the boundaries there, and I think that's kind of the craft, you know, being a craftsman and being able to transcend that.
The other aspect of my design is beauty. That is my thing, my primary interest. That is my artist statement. Beauty is a spiritual concept. Line, form, texture, balance, harmony, all ends up having a spiritual impact.
the joy of it all, you know, is just fantastic. This piece, when we get done with it, it's going to have an energy field when the average human being walks under it. If you take your voltmeter, your amp meter with you, you ought to be able to get a reading, because the energy that all is put in there is just going to be there forever. All of us that are working here right now on this project are just absolutely thrilled to do this. It's like, this is like being in hog heaven for us guys, you know?
This is where we are right now.
Yeah.
This side going this way, right?
Yeah.
With a detailed hole there, detailed hole. We're gonna weld the two pieces together in the second half, and then we'll have the second half finished, except for dressing up the head. So what'll happen is we'll weld that up, lift it off, take this piece, put it up, and when we put this one up, we'll be putting it up vertical. And then when they're finished with that one, we'll bring the other half up. So we're getting real close.
With the generosity of heart of blacksmiths. I don't know if standing in the fire warms your heart or what.
Oh, it's a warm one. Juice is good.
This has been the most life-giving experience of my life. It's just been so fabulous. One of my favorite lines from a Mary Oliver poem is, "Oh, to love something lovely that will not last. What a task to ask of anything or anyone." And I felt so much that in the last 18 months to have had something as lovely as being married to Russell and have to face knowing that it won't last. And you've given me something that will last and last and last. And I just thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Hip, hip! Hooray! Hip, hip! Hooray! Hip, hip! Hooray!
I am not sure how to say my gratitude. Willene and I are in awe of the hearts that you've given us. It means so much to see my contemporaries working side by side, the second and third generations. This thing we gave our life to is real and goes on. The hammer will outlast us all, a grand maker of beauty. I feel love and want to say I love you if that is okay with you.
There's not many of us that would have the balls to even undertake something like this, and that was one of the things that always amazed us about Russell.
Yeah.
Is he always was pushing the envelope. You know, he really inspired a lot of us to try and do stuff that we wouldn't have done otherwise.
I also think that Russell, this is a heart and soul piece for him, and it always amazes me that something like that could start out as paper and then somehow wind up standing on that table up there, you know, I just think is absolutely amazing. And then as Russell, you know, we were all pointing to Russell there at the end, and he couldn't raise his hand, but he was looking up. He was saying that this came from a higher power, I think.
Through this process, we all collectively, we grew together. And it never stopped. This craft never stops. You gotta grow, you gotta grow, you gotta grow. And sometimes, no, we may not ever make another thing like this again, but that doesn't mean we can't make something nice from the inspiration that we got while we worked on this project. And with Russell's help, we grew, and that's what counts.
I've always suffered from low self-esteem. This piece freed me from that once and for all. Could there be a more important healing than to, I mean, all of us struggle with that issue, to have that lifted, you know, that is it. I really had to say to myself, wow, you know, you get given more than what you even know how to ask for. And, you know, to get to end your life having been freed from the slavery of that kind of, you know, esteem issues, how wonderful. That's what those 32 people gave to us, and, you know, the spirit that worked through them. We, all of us, are links in a chain that goes way back to the Iron Age. This is the good part of it all. Men and metal in a relationship. It's a big story, but this week, it's the heart of it.